You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I'm excited about summer movies. Okay, I realize that technically the movie industry probably defines the summer season as starting with Memorial Day movies, or maybe even before, but what can I say? I'm behind this year. I just got a movie pass, I hope it works, and I'm pretty psyched for Jurassic World this weekend, so I guess better late than never, right? I love movies though. I feel like this is something that we did as a family, and I have lots of memories of seeing movies with my parents and my brothers. In fact, a classic family movie story is going to see Ghostbusters, the original in 1984. I was 6 years old and there was only 4 seats open, and so I ended up sitting on my dad's lap with a large bucket of popcorn. And those of you who've seen the movie, and if you haven't seen the movie, what's wrong with you? No, I kid. But seriously, you should see Ghostbusters. But if you've seen the movie, then you know at the beginning of the movie there is a ghost librarian and she's just gliding around. And then all of a sudden she's like, "Rah!" And both my dad and I jumped and the popcorn went all over. And to this day, we still debate about who was scared and who made the other one jump. From my point of view, it was my dad who was scared and then made me jump. And he likes to blame a 6-year-old, but, you know, that's not cool. We were probably both scared, but whatever. Additionally, when I think of movies, I think about how my dad took me to see the first Jurassic Park when I was 14, and then we went to go see the first Jurassic World movie when I was 27, and now the second Jurassic World movie comes out this weekend, and hopefully we'll be seeing that. And now that I'm 40, you can see that it's quite consistent that we see movies together. But I also think about going to movies as a friendship tradition, and I can think of all the stories of going to see midnight showings of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter, going to see movies for friends' birthdays, and all the other fun stories and yucky experiences we had in the movie theater. And I think of one of my worst experiences, and maybe Kate can back me up here, but seriously, why was The Perfect Storm like the worst movie? I really wanted to see this movie, and I really wanted to walk out of it, but I was in the middle of a row in a sold-out theater on a Friday night and couldn't get out, and so I just suffered. So this is why I'm excited to get psyched for summer movies by chatting with friends Kelly and Sarah from the Bad Feminist Film Club podcast. Their friendship is rooted in movies and movie analysis, and this has led to a great podcast looking at movies through a feminist lens. We had a fun chat about movies and friendship, so have a listen. I was wondering if you could start by telling the listeners who you each are and what your podcast is and what it's about.
Sure. Sarah, you can introduce it. You're good at it.
So my name is Sarah. I'm Sarah Barson. I work in the film industry, and Kelly and I have a podcast together called Bad Feminist Film Club. And it's basically just a podcast about film criticism. We watch a lot of different kinds of movies, but all of them are kind of through the feminist lens, and we view them all in terms of like both what we love about them, but also some things that they could potentially do better in terms of feminism or in terms of diversity.
Yes.
And I'm Kelly Kaufman, obviously the co-host, and I live in Charlottesville, Virginia right now, and I do social media. So we kind of have two different kind of backgrounds, so that's kind of fun to do that, like when we're talking about the podcast.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, and one of the things that I really appreciate is that, I mean, I love movies and I grew up and that's what our family did together. Like we always went to go see movies, or we had a VHS player that we got for Christmas and we were super psyched to get our VHS, tapes and that sort of thing. But then also I teach gender communication at Central Michigan University. So cool. I certainly am someone who is always looking for examples or always just thinking about it and what I can share with students, what we can talk about in the class. And that's something that we talk about a lot is like media representation, just the inclusion of women, like the Bechdel test and that sort of thing. But then also when they are included, how are they portrayed?
Yeah, it's like it's only half the problem. It's like can't just happen.
Yeah. And even with like the Bechdel test, it's like that's like the most bare minimum.
Yes.
Like, of anything, you're just like
Did you talk to each other about something other than men?
I know, it's so sad. And sometimes when they fail, you're just like, this makes literally
it's
no sense.
so easy. Like,
Why? We're doing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, see, it can happen. It's live and in action happening right now.
Exactly.
So then how did you come, you said that you were in the film industry and that you're in the social media industry. Mm-hmm. How did you become friends? Like, how can you tell me your friendship origin story? Sometimes people don't agree on that. Sometimes, one person tells it, but, whatever you like to do. But how did Kelly and Sarah come to be?
It's pretty great because it's fairly straightforward. Is that we both went to San Diego State University, and I was a film minor, she was a film major. So we met in a film class. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
Film criticism with Wojtyla.
Yeah, it's literally called like film criticism, where like it's kind of the intro to learning how to talk about films, and we like sat right next to each other, and then I think we just became friends that way. I don't really know exactly how we introduced each other. I was trying
to think about it because I feel like one day I just like turned to you and like we'd had a couple classes and I was like, because Kelly has like really distinctive red hair, and I remember like seeing you in a few classes and being like, so I happened to remember you and then was like, we should just be friends. Like clearly we're in all the same classes. Let's just like make it official.
Exactly. And we liked the same, we figured out we liked the same movies. So it was like, do you want to go see Drive with Ryan Gosling in it? And I was like,
and I knew we were going to be friends, and so we went to go see that. And the part where he like smashes a man's face in the elevator, and everyone else in the theater was like, and both of us were like, oh yes, like this is amazing. Like,
yeah, we're like,
get him.
We're like, yes. And then I would say it's also telling is that probably a week later we saw it again.
Yeah. Nice.
So we're just like,
I am a fan of seeing movies multiple times.
Me too.
You would go to movies a lot. Do you have, and certainly the Ryan Gosling movies, seeing it more than once. I love that. Do you have a shared favorite film in your friendship, or even like what's your favorite film together, or ones that you can agree on, or what is the one that you completely disagree on? I think that could be fun too.
Well, I feel like most of our like early friendship memories are based in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we saw the Avengers like the night of Thursday night, I think, we had like the whole movie theater to ourselves for like a whole hour because we got there so early, like ridiculously early.
Sounds like something I do.
Yeah. And I also remember another, also Marvel related, is us leaving a bar to go see Winter Soldier for like
I remember that because we like, so Kelly and I have not lived in the same city since college, basically, like for 6 years now. So whenever we come to visit, it's like, oh wow, we're gonna go out, we're gonna do things. So I remember us being in a really like hip bar here in LA at like midnight, and then it was like the weekend Winter Soldier came out, and I remember just being like, oh yeah, like I haven't seen it yet, we should totally go. And then I think we both like at the same time were like, we could just go now, like that could also happen. That would be
I totally remember like a visual of Sarah like looking up the time. She's like, well, the ArcLight has one in like an hour, so we could like go change and we can go and we can totally make it. And I was like, yeah, screw this like hip bar. And I like nope, we're just gonna leave.
It was a great decision. It's one of the best movies ever. Yeah.
I just love, like, I think with movies or maybe TV shows, but maybe more so movies because of the experience of it, and certain songs can remind you of your friends. Like, as you're telling me your stories, I'm thinking about the times when Kate, my best friend, and I went to go see LA Confidential, and we took Wendy's, and we sat in the second row. We were so excited, and the people behind us are like, why does this smell like burgers? And we're all like, hee, like, we love it. And then actually, I made her go see the Fast and the original.
Oh man,
at the movie theater.
Wow,
opening night.
That's an experience. I can't even imagine.
Was. I mean, with the sound and the big screen, it is worth seeing.
Oh, but I would. If they did a rescreen of that, I definitely would.
Oh yeah, it was so good. But that's always been my guilty pleasure movies.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, we did a whole season on it. So
yes,
I would say
I've been listening.
Too.
I'm not completely caught up, but I'm listening. And I was like, when you were talking about it, I was like, I remember being in the theater for that. And I remember, because it was a Universal, I don't know if that's the case for all of them.
I think so.
But Universal, so you have the world or whatever, and it turned into a rim of a car and did that. like it was shifting, and I was like, this movie's gonna be great. And Kate's like, what the hell have you brought me to? And like, we're about to watch the best movie that's ever been made. And I love Paul Walker. Really sad when he passed.
R.I.P. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. But I had a question for you, and now I'm not caught up with everything. Like, one of the things that's really cool about putting out the call is that I get to learn about other podcasts. Maybe we were following each other on Twitter, but then I'm like, oh, let me check this out. And I'm like, I'm definitely going to share on my personal Twitter. I'll definitely share on my podcast stuff too, that we've interacted and, when the show comes out, that sort of thing. But I want to share with my gender students your podcast because I think that there are a lot of students who would be interested. But my question for you is this. Can we talk about, well, maybe it's not a question so much as the topic. Can we talk about how Ludacris, who, P.S., is one of my favorite people of all time?
Yes.
How he went from street races to hacking computers? When did that happen?
We talk about that all the time.
I know.
Because it's not just hacking.
Yeah, like, I'm always like, what? Like, after watching the second one, you're like, oh, wait. He never was like a hacker.
No. He is now.
The crazy part is like he isn't just a hacker. Like it starts that way, but then like come like 6, 7, 8, he's like their R&D like extravaganza everything. Like you need some weird ass machine that you need. Like he just makes it.
He's like. He's like Minority Reporting the whole, like, if you've seen that movie with the screen, the Tom Cruise finger thing. He's like Minority Reporting stuff. I'm like, when did this happen? And then Tyrese has always just been hungry. Like,
that's his thing.
Nothing has changed there.
Well, we talked about, like, and I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast, and I kind of want to, like, go back to this maybe when the ninth one comes out or whatever, but... So the Fast and Furious series actually has a lot to do with like D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons characters. Like the way that they all work together is very similar to a D&D campaign, and that's because Vin Diesel is like super hardcore into D&D. And so if you look at it through that lens, it kind of makes slightly more sense because it's like, oh, he gained this
like
power.
They're all leveling up.
Exactly. They just continuously level up all the time. Like
And also, it's like once it gets to 4, the 4th Fast and Furious, it basically reboots itself. Where they're like, we'll kind of ignore half of the stuff we said.
Yeah.
3 takes place in the past, and you're just like, or no, in the future. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, that
and
one
then you're just like,
doesn't make sense.
You're like, okay. Fine. And you're just like, and I think that's what it was. Like, they rebooted Ludacris's character. You're like, hey, remember him? He's also like super smart and like just overnight. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if I can believe in hobbits and wizards, I guess I can believe that he became a hacker. I mean, maybe
you know what?
He went to a trade school. Maybe he got his degree on University of Phoenix online. You just never know.
Completely agree.
Yeah, no, it's totally possible. I mean, I think they just needed a guy to be that because they're like, they're souping up all these cars. So like, you know what, we'll just, because Tyrese, no one's going to believe that.
He's
they're
just
like, no.
hungry.
No. They're like, he can't pull off these like words.
Yeah.
Ludacris can do it. No problem.
I just want to put it out there that Ludacris is literally one of my favorite people, and that Llama Llama freestyle rap of the book. If you haven't seen that, you need to YouTube that immediately after this recording. It's so good. It's that kid's book, Mama Llama, and then he raps it on a radio show, and it's like amazing. I'm like, they should pack. I would listen to this is like my new pump up jam, you know? Like
and that's gonna change my life. Like I already know the minute I listen to that.
I mean, I'll share it on Twitter too. Everyone needs to know.
Yes.
Like
I'll retweet it.
So what are some of the movies that you disagree on? Like, have there been any friendship tiffs, or you just know you like kind of razz each other and like, oh, here we go with this movie?
I can't think of a lot because I feel like one of the reasons that we are able to like not just be friends, but like the reason that we podcast well together is because we have similar opinions. They're not always identical, and we have different perspectives, but we generally like agree on most things, I feel.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think it seems more like we like movies in different ways, but we like the same movie. Yeah. I think that's how I would say it. Like, we both like John Wick for, like, similar but maybe slightly different reasons. Yeah. Not like Keanu Reeves. Also, like, just we always agree on that. But
side note, I had never thought about Fast and the Furious being Point Break in cars until you then like.
Yes, that's what
I don't want to use the word ruined, but I was just like mind blown. I was like, what?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, I love Point Break. I just didn't. It didn't. And then I was like, oh my god, it's like literally.
That's what it is.
Literally is.
It's literally
with cars.
No,
and they just kept it going. Like.
So it is clear that movies are a huge part of your friendship, and that's so cool because I feel like when my friends and I were closer together geographically, that's sort of how we spent a lot of our time. Like I can remember, I'll give you one little story. Maybe you have another one you'd like to share, but my best friend Kate and her, I don't think they were married then, engaged, dating, whatever. They were together. So Chris, Kate, and myself, we went to go see the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Jessica Biel on opening night.
Nice.
And I have anxiety. I get really worked up. I don't like scary movies. And so I go to see this, and what's his face? The gross guy, Leatherface, is running after Jessica. Like, she's just like standing there, and he's just like casually walking towards her. And I'm like, and I just yell in the middle of the theater, "Bitch, run!" And, like, everyone just started laughing at me. And I was like, I am so sorry. I was just so concerned. But that's, like, the trope of, like, you know, like, here's this pretty girl. And I should have just been like, Jessica, run. I felt really bad that I was just... But I was just so worked up. I was so worked up. And then I was still worked up going back to their place because I lived with Kate at that time. Nice. So, yeah, they were definitely not married because that would be awkward. Hey, it's just the three of us. So if you haven't seen the trailer of that movie, it's like at the beginning there's like the old school cameras with the flashes. And when the flash goes, it goes, ee!
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And so it's like it makes it creepier. So now you have two things to watch: Luda, Mama Llama, and then the remake trailer. And so Kate and I are walking up to the house, and it's like shady part of town. It's like dark out. It's like we went to the midnight showing or whatever. And Chris comes up behind us, and he goes, and I was like, oh. So I definitely feel like so many friendship stories come out of movies. And actually, I think what would be really cool, and I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head, and then I want to know more about you, is that when things come up, I'm like, oh, that would be a really cool thing to talk about on the podcast. Like, have listeners write in their friendship stories related to movies as like a shout out to you, Kelly and Sarah, and to your podcast. I think that would be really cool. Maybe maybe I could have you back and we could talk about some of the letters that people write in. Would you be interested in that?
I would be interested.
We love interacting with people.
Don't be sorry.
That's a great idea.
I just will like randomly have ideas. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's how we run ours.
Like that reminds me of like
it's like, let's do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Like some of our memories will be like, one like very vivid is like when we saw the Avengers and they have that shot of Chris Evans' butt and we both go, oh my God.
The audible gasp.
I mean, we weren't the only people. It was like you could hear every single woman in this theater, maybe some men as well. Yeah, like being like,
well, I remember that, and I remember the first year. So this is kind of movies related, but not specifically. But the first year that we went to Comic-Con together, the first time that we had ever been, and. Yes.
San Diego Comic-Con?
Yeah. Full on San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay, continue, and then I'll ask you
it was like we had never... we didn't know what we were doing, but it was still like, what was this, like 5 years ago? And so it was still at a level where you could go camp out in line at like 11 p.m. the night before and get into Hall H and like be in the front row. Yeah. So the first year that we went, I remember Robert Downey Jr. came in and danced down the aisles of Hall H, like to... Yeah, and I just remember that. And what was the other one? Was when Orlando Bloom waved at us. Those are two of my favorite Comic-Con memories that when we were both there.
Yeah, because we waved at him, but I didn't expect him to wave back, and then he waved back, and we both did this like 14-year-old girl like giggle.
Cringe inwards, it was like...
like my deep feelings for like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie,
Legolas,
like bubbled back up. Like Legolas too. Yeah,
See,
it's a big moment.
Comic-Con in San Diego is like a bucket item list.
Yes.
And
You should
when I
go.
lived in New York, I went to the Philly
Nice.
Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I went specifically because I like The Walking Dead, and I met Norman Reedus. And there's just pictures of me like,
Amazing. Yeah.
I'm just Norman Reedus. And then the guy who played Shane, John
Yes, the
Bernthal,
Punisher,
is that his
right?
name?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he's a dreamboat. And
Oh, I love
then
him.
to bring back, that language. And is it the Ashmore twins? The one that's in X-Men? Shoot. He was in X-Men. He was the one with Rogue. It's X-Men.
Is the ice one?
Bobby.
Yes.
Iceman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I loved
Bobby.
him.
Yeah, and then the
Bobby.
other one I think was in The Following or something. And I just was
Oh.
like, hey, boys. I'm like, I should not be allowed.
Well, that's what's
outside.
wild. Like, that's what's insane about cons is that,
Yeah.
like, celebrities
Weird.
just, like, kind of
Yeah.
walk around and, like, so, like, we always stay in the same hotel for the most part when we go to Comic-Con, and, like, you'll just see, like,
Yeah.
rando celebrities, like, walking in, like, staying on the same floor as you, like, it's just a thing, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I guess we won't interrupt because you'll see them. They
Like
like
the
they
fear,
see
yeah.
you, and you're like, okay. And they're like, please don't approach me. I'm trying to get back to my hotel room, and I can't
Yeah.
even imagine
Yeah.
how that feels. I'm like,
Yeah.
and I go, hey, and then I like leave. It's like go to your room before they find you. Like,
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, being from Michigan, I'm from the Midwest, so this
Yeah.
all sounds very exciting. And I was in LA recently to visit my brother and to go to LA Podfest and met Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block and freaked my crap right out. But for me, it was like, that was 12-year-old, because I'm 40, so that was like 12-year-old Alysa, like, oh my God, I love Joey McIntyre. You are respecting actors. Is there like a top 3 that you're like, sorry, I'm going to interrupt this person because I love them so much?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are your top 3? Who are your top 3?
I feel like
oh gosh,
Chris Evans gotta be up
Chris
there.
Evans. I have no shame. Like
Oh,
Keanu
yes.
Reeves, I think I would. If I saw him, I
He's
think I
so
would
nice.
have to.
Like, he seems like the nicest
Yeah.
man
Yes.
ever. And so if I saw him, I would try to be respectful, but I
exactly.
also feel like I wouldn't feel like I was putting so much on him to be like, hey, man. Like,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 He's a little bit more chill. I don't know. I'm trying to think who else. There's just so many.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I definitely know my top 2, and one I think would be irritated, and the other one I think would be cool. And you can guess which one is going to be irritated.
Yeah.
So Idris Elba
Yes.
and Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's like, you know how there's like
Yes.
legendary level Pokemon? Like, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio is like a legendary level.
Yes.
Like, if you see someone of that
Yes.
level,
Like-
like, you've just got to do it. Like, because it's never going to happen again.
I would probably
Exactly.
scream, and he'd be like, "Oh my God, is someone getting murdered?"
No, yeah, you're like, oh my God. Like, yeah.
He's like, bodyguards. It's fine. And then Idris Elba, I just think would be really
like he'd be
cool.
really nice.
Oh, and then the third
So
one
dreamy.
for me right now. So third place would probably rotate depending on what
Totally.
I'm into.
Yeah.
Would be Luke Evans.
Yeah.
I love Luke Evans.
Oh, I love Luke
And I'd be
Evans,
like, "Can
yeah.
you sing a little something? Just a
I only
note."
just started following him on Instagram, which was a terrible decision on my
Ooh,
part.
is that
but
a good
he's-
idea?
Has an amazing Instagram. I mean, he is living his
Yes.
best
Ooh,
life. All his stories and his images are like him shirtless, like on a beach, like happy. I just yeah. It's like I'm torn between like being turned on and like just being happy for this person who's like clearly doing their best
like,
life. Like,
Right.
And he seems like a good
Yeah.
person too. Like he seems
Agreed.
like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, I'm interested. Like maybe it's the UK, the Idris Elba. I think Luke Evans is Welsh, so maybe it's that area. But they just seem like they're like, come on over, have a beer.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
can I have a cider? Because I don't like beer. But yes, let's drink together.
Yeah, I feel like because they're not like that famous. I think in the UK it must be like the celebrity might be
Yeah.
a little different.
Yes,
So that
yes.
like maybe when they come here it's
Yeah.
like a little chill. So they're
Yeah.
like probably nicer.
Yeah, I feel like they would just be at like football matches, i.e. soccer,
Right.
and just
Yeah.
like
Right.
chilling, and you'd be like, hey, what's up?
You're like, oh hey, I love you
Okay.
so much.
and let me so much.
Oh, you're just
Like a sidebar to that too,
So-
I also feel
Yes.
is something we talk about a lot is like, so there's like male celebrities that we would love to like just meet for obvious reasons,
yes.
but are there female celebrities?
Fair.
We always are like, we kind of want to go party with some people. We feel like there are some, not just
Yes.
women, but like in general, there are certain celebrities that we're like, they're actually really close to our age and we would love to like party with them. I feel like something like that as well.
Oh my gosh.
My age group might be different than your age group, but immediately I'm going to say Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Mindy Kaling.
Also good.
I mean, that list is just as long, if not longer, than my male celebrity.
Fair.
We were just talking about, like the train, but that makes sense. Like, let's not objectify
it's fine.
A discussion of feminism.
No, we definitely
Yeah,
objectify
it's fine.
men all
Yeah.
the time. It's okay, it's fair.
We try not to be gross,
Just
but
like how you're about like, it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like crushes. Like, I feel like that's okay.
I'm not
It's
going to be like weird about it.
yeah. I mean, I might just tag all of the guys that we just talked about and women in the post when this gets posted. I'll just be like, Idris,
Hey.
Luke, Keanu, Chris. Let's get them all in there.
Let's hang out.
But who are your women? Tell me. I told you mine.
I think if it was like we're like hanging out, I would love to hang out with like Tessa Thompson.
Yes, absolutely.
I love her.
She seems awesome.
Like Kate Blanchett, just because I imagine her life's just better.
The Ragnarok cast, including Taika, I would like to, like, they seem like
every
great
single
group
one of them.
people.
Yes.
I'd really like to party with them, for sure.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I was trying to think who else. Oh, I love the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I don't know if you guys have watched it.
I haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
It's really good. Rachel Bloom's amazing, and I probably want to hang out with her because she's like crazy amazing. They like write like 3 songs for each episode.
Wow.
Which is insane.
That's on my list, but I did pause Supernatural which now I'm going back to Comic-Con. I bet the Winchester brothers are always
every
there.
year. Sundays in Hall
always
H.
there.
Every single year. Supernatural. Probably after the show's done, it's going to continue.
Okay.
Like, really.
They'll just still
on
do
going.
it.
Forever, for life. They're done. They're done. Yeah, for life, they're good. But I paused that to watch the most season 13 of Grey's Anatomy so that I could get caught up. And then now I'm feeling really motivated to watch all my Fast and the Furious. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
But Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is definitely on my list because I teach classes about relationships. So I'm always looking for new examples and things like that.
Yeah, this one's good because at first when I heard about the show, I was like, this is a super sexist title. Like, what? Yeah. And then basically, like, the first episode's like, yeah, we know it's super sexist. Like, it's a joke. And then you're like, oh, okay. You guys are chill. Like, that's cool. And it's like mental health and how she, like, gets to attach these men because of her own weird mental health issues. So it's like she romanticizes things way too much.
This sounds perfect.
Yeah, so and they're good about being accurate where she's like, it's not like has a generic mental illness. She's like, they explain why she has all these problems. And like,
maybe I'll start that tonight because the first 4 episodes of season 14 of Grey's Anatomy are not available. So I guess I can't get caught up. But that reminds me, it is really interesting, like, how things are presented. Like, I remember when Desperate Housewives came out, and I was like, that is a horrible title. I was like, I am not going to watch that. That is disgusting. But then it was like, this can't be, like, it's making fun of it, or, like, it's completely different. And I was like, I even maybe need to calm down a little bit when seeing, like, waiting to pass judgment until seeing something or, actually seeing the trailer or reading what it's about. So let me ask you this. Like, how did you come about to actually having the podcast together? Was it something you were talking about for a while? Was there a particular reason why you wanted to do it? I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
So I don't have the text chain, but it's basically Sarah texting me being like, hey, so I have this idea. I'm like, okay. She's like, what if we start a podcast? And I'm
without
like,
even
yes. And it's like, about, and then it goes, and about feminism, like, yes. And she's like, about the Fast and Furious franchise. And like,
I love how it started with that.
I led into it.
Yeah. It was like Sarah's idea, so she.
But we talked about it for a long time, and like, so a big part of our podcast that I feel like it gets lost now that we are actually like kind of have a real podcast and have people who actually listen to it and like things like that. But it's like, it's really meant to just be conversations that we were already having, So it's a way not only for us to like kind of like, I don't know, spread a message, I guess, but it's mostly a way for us to like have a therapy session and like explain our feelings about the movies that we watch. Because the whole point, like the reason that we're called Bad Feminist Film Club is like to like find how to balance liking things that aren't very feminist and trying to find the ways to criticize things that we love, and like all how complex that is.
It is, because when I teach gender communication, I'm like, I can't this thing when I'm teaching gender messages to people. It's like,
that's like the whole problem, because it's all about, you know, how do I live in this world that has a lot of sexist material, but like it's okay to like things sometimes, you know, obviously there's lines. And it's also because of, you know, Roxane Gay's book, Bad Feminist, like obviously that's where it comes from.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she talks about it like just dealing with that, and I always encourage people to read that if they also like our podcast, because she's very good at articulating that and saying like, but like also letting it go. Like it's okay to sometimes like problematic things, but you know, but we're also trying to find like the line. Yes. Like when is it too much and you're just like, okay, this is stupid.
Well, and I think there's something to be said about being able to go, I know this is bad for these reasons, and this is why I like it, and how does that impact me? Am I letting it influence me in certain ways, or is it something that I'm just enjoying? Like, you know, as you were talking about Fast and the Furious, like you made a really good point that I hadn't thought about before, because it's like that first race scene in the first movie where you have like the diversity of the racers, and then it's the when not Ludacris.
The Diesel.
Ja Rule. Sorry.
Yeah, those early ones are.
Yeah, Ja Rule. But he's like going for like the two ladies or whatever, and I was like, oh, like really? That seems like a cheap, like low hanging fruit thing to do. But then you're like, but if they're okay with it, and I'm like,
yeah, I know. That's the thing. That's our constant conversation is like, I think that's like, you kind of asked like how we disagree. Again, it's like, I don't think we disagree, but that's our dialogue 24/7 is like, well, maybe this is okay, but if they're okay with it, maybe it's fine, or like maybe this is bad because like the writers put it in there. So in a meta way, it's probably bad. And like, it just like a constant conversation, like circling around all the aspects of like the complexities of a movie. There's so many angles.
Exactly.
And so many people love movies, and I think people are having these conversations, and they can have them right along with you. Or like I said, like these are things I think about, you know, when I teach my classes and that sort of thing. Right. But then when I was listening to the episodes I've listened to so far, I was just like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, like I haven't thought about it that way. So it's like even when it's something you're thinking about, you might think about something in a new way. And one of the really cool things about podcasts is like, I always, like, I'm a huge TV person. Like, I love the couch potato thing. Like, Netflix asked me if I'm still watching. I'm like, that seems like a stupid question. Yes, I'm still watching.
Duh.
So for me, like, podcast is new and different. Like, how do I listen and what do I do? But I've never thought so much in my entire life. That seems silly because I have a PhD. But I've never thought so much. Like, I just find podcasts to be so challenging to the way you think, or, like, adding in different layers of how you think, and that's what I really like about your podcast. I was just like, yes, and and just a lot of agreement, like yes, girl, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and like that's actually we've like kind of evolved even our podcast, because we used to kind of have a rating, like a feminist rating and like a movie rating, but then we kind of got rid of it because we kind of decided it's not about that. It's not about this is
thumbs
good
up,
feminism. You know, because we want it to make it a little more nuanced, and I don't have to say like this is good. It's like you can decide for yourself.
Yes,
how you think, and I think that's the way to do kind of film criticism.
And we ourselves, like I think about all the time, like both of us have like a very specific lens and a very specific perspective on movies, but obviously like we aren't the only perspective, and we aren't always like correct about the way that we view movies and all that stuff. So I think like kind of what you're saying is like podcasts are so amazing because they're not that difficult to get started. Like they don't require a lot of money, and they don't require too much time in, you know, at its most basic level. And so I feel like you get so many voices in podcasting that you wouldn't hear otherwise. And that's what the feedback that we get from our podcast the most is people being like, well, this is cool because I just don't ever think about these perspectives necessarily. And so it's like, the same goes for us too, is like listening to other podcasts. I definitely feel the same way. Yeah.
That's why I definitely want to share on my at Dr. Alysa Lucas Twitter, which is the one that I use for school and students and that sort of thing. I'll be sure. I'm not teaching gender now, but I still always post, like, so I'll just be like gender communication, and then I'll share an article or whatever. And so I'll definitely share that. And then I teach it in the fall. And what would be really cool is if you are interested in the media section, maybe you can Skype in or record something because time difference might be interesting. Depending on when I teach. I think I teach it in the afternoon, or later. So,
That'd be amazing.
I'd be happy to.
I just think, like, I just try to think, like, not only, you know, for me, podcasting is, I like the idea, like, it's a different voice. Like, to me, we don't have enough voices that talk about friendship. It's always about romantic relationships or parenting or things like that. And then additionally, that people who have those stories can share them, much like people who have thoughts about these things can share them with you, or they get them from your show. And there's just so much representation. And so I just think about the ways that I can use it to also teach students. And so I just think that, you know, our students can be like, let me read this textbook, or let me listen to this podcast.
Yes, we'd love to shape young minds.
Yes, please.
I like how you both did that at the same time.
I know. We're just like,
they're doing their evil hand gestures.
Yes.
Do people know what that means? If I say evil hand gesture, will they know?
It's when you touch your fingers, but you twirl them. I don't know if that's right. But you know, but yeah, I think especially for us, because how we met too was through like having really good professors, and that really shaped how we talk about film now. Is the basic film criticism class. Basically, like, reshaped how I think about movies and, like, broke down by genre and by character and by, you know, every single thing. And then the other class that we took, I think after that, was the Women Directors course by Professor Lawson, who does it's called the celluloid study, where, you know, they talk about representation of women. Like, she runs that study.
I probably use it in my classroom. Like, any of the research findings, I'm sure I do. I have some activities based on research.
No, that's
so, you know,
I was just going to say, that's so true, because, like, so much of what we talk about in terms of not just, like, what's within a movie, but the way that you as a viewer are experiencing the movie, and the way that the choices that, like, all the people involved in the movie made, I guess, like, the director and the writer and all that, like, that is all, for me at least, just completely from her class. Like, that was the first class where I really started being woke, I would say, in terms of feminism. You know, like, that class was hugely influential for us, and really, definitely started us down that path. So, I mean, that's super cool that you're doing those classes and, like, are kind of in that position.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, those are fun. They're fun. Yeah. So what would you say it is like to podcast together, the two of you?
It feels like it's like I think Sarah said this, like, it's like the conversations we're having, we just decide to wait to record it. Where, like, I'm just like, well, that was like half the thing, especially when we go out and see movies. I'm like, oh, well, I was going to text Sarah, like, have you seen Thor Ragnarok? Like, this would be like, we're doing it, just recording it, having other people listen.
Yeah. So do you, like, take notes? You're like, okay, I had a thought about this. Now I need to wait, and I can't text her or talk about it until we record. It's just like conversations with microphones now.
And I feel like, I mean, I hope we've gotten better at, like, organizing our thoughts. That was definitely a challenge for me when I first started this. I think we've gotten better as we've gotten. But I mean, like, we definitely take notes, and depending on the movie, they can be, like, really extensive. I've had, like, some really long notes. But I mean, even when the last time that we went to actually physically see a movie together in the same place, we, like, got back in the car and just, like, didn't talk the entire way home, because we knew that if we started talking, we weren't going to be able to have a podcast, because we were just going to have the podcast in the car. So.
Think of something else to discuss.
Yeah, we're like, so, you know, it was a good popcorn. Yeah, it was great.
It was kind of cold in our theater. I don't know.
Yeah, and I just, and like I have to say, like, coded things, like, here's this article I sent you, and we'll chat about it later.
Later.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Well, I was going to ask, what would you say, and I know you said earlier that you sort of got that's the cool thing about podcasts. They're also organic. So you started with the rating system, or you're thinking about organization. Like, you can work towards something new and different, or fix things and you just get better by experience anyways. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I know you already said that you don't use the rating system anymore. So if you don't want to answer this question, that is fine. But what do you think is one of the best movies in which reflects what would be feminism, like a feminist film? What do you think would be an example of that people might have seen or should see?
I mean, I feel like there's like the really cliche one, or not cliche, but a more recent one would definitely be the Mad Max movie. I feel like that one, like, there's definitely issues with it in terms of like diversity, I would say. Like, it's a very white movie, but in terms of just in comparison, I think it's cool because it's a story centering around an unconventional woman, and it has a lot of, and it also is a movie about men and women working together, which is important, and I feel like that's not as commonly seen in quote unquote feminist movies. I feel like I have to go down our like track list and look at the movies we've done to like remember.
Well, yeah, because, like, for Mad Max also, it's like, then they showed a variety of women who have different strengths, and I think it was okay that not all of them were Furiosa. Yeah. This kind of, like, strong, badass woman. Like, not all of them have to be like that, and that's also important because we can't just have strong women and, like, showing no weakness, because then that just becomes, like, a stereotype.
Yes.
Or, a trope being used. Yeah, it's kind of hard because, like, for feminist movies, it's like, it's kind of hard to define how you see feminism. I'd honestly also say, don't make fun of me, Beyonce's visual album Lemonade is actually feminist in some ways that, especially like inclusion and representation and like from a particular woman's perspective.
Yes.
I actually think that's like really well done, and incorporating like poems and poetry. And if you watch it as a whole, it kind of is like a really important part of like, so I'd even say that.
And I think there's a delineation between like movies that have women in it that treat women well, and like a full-on like, this is a story about a woman told from a woman's perspective. Because I would definitely say that like Thor Ragnarok was great in terms of the way that it has female characters. Like, it's got really great characters. But then you have like Alias Grace, which we also did, which is like a very strongly like a story about a particular woman, about her trouble that you wouldn't see otherwise, and it's told from her perspective. So I think that's another good option.
Exactly. And especially the ones that we've covered. So I would say, Alias Grace is one, even though it was a Netflix TV show, but we decided to break our rule on that one. But it's fine.
It's fine.
We're a film club that does TV sometimes. It's fine.
That could be your tagline.
All the time.
But in terms of thinking about friendship, like thinking about, the two of you being friends, Sarah and Kelly, what has it meant to be friends, right? So Sarah, what has it meant for you to be friends with Kelly? And Kelly, what has it meant to be friends with Sarah?
Yeah. I definitely feel like it's been, because we have been friends through several periods of my life, I feel like it's been so cool to have a friend who our interests have stayed pretty much the same throughout our friendship. And I think, especially now that we have the podcast, it's just so fun to have someone that I can like have this project with and like have these interests with. And as I've gotten older and like had more female friendships, it's like, oh, okay, so this is what a female friendship is like. But I do feel like with Kelly in particular, like you were probably one of the first like really close female friendships I had as an adult. And so I think that was like really important in the way of like, I get to be nerdy with this person, and but I also can like be like, hey, like I broke up with this guy, or like, oh, like we, so I feel like it's really cool to like have someone that I don't just have to be feminine or around, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's just cool to like have someone like we can just be friends and have like diverse interests, and I don't worry about like what that what that means or who that makes me or anything like that. I think that's cool.
Because I remember like after Sarah, because Sarah graduated before I graduated, and I was like, oh man, I hope we like stay friends, because it's like it's gonna be really tough, like because we just started becoming fast friends so quickly, and we have so many of the similar interests and similar like life goals. I don't know if that's so I always felt like we had that in common, and so I was just also glad because we, like Sarah said, we had not lived in the same city for probably more time than we did at this point. So that's kind of insane. But we're able to still be friends and be better friends because of that, which is like kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then I think this podcast only made our friendship stronger, which I think is great. And also in a way of, I feel like we have this kind of open communication where I could be like, hey, do you want to change this part? Or if Sarah's like, hey, I was thinking about, and we are able to work together on that, where I feel like that might not work with like all friends that I have. And it's a very like collaborative and supportive. And, I always feel like, we're like always texting each other about like stupid poor gifts or it can also be something serious about, like feminism. So it's nice that like where it can be across the board. Like Sarah was saying, it's like, I don't have to be one thing for this, where it's like we all have, we're like, but we're still different enough. So that's always interesting and like to like talk and like, have that kind of conversation. And, and just like, it's like, and I always think it's like, oh, cool. I get to like always get to talk to my best friend every like 2 weeks for sure. And then it's like even more than I'm like, oh my gosh. So like, look at this website about this, like, and then like, so I feel like I'm just like talking to her constantly in like the best way where it's like, oh, this is great. Like, so.
It just seems like that, what's really neat is that you can, no matter the transition, so you said, that there's different parts of your life, like over a certain amount of time that you can transition in your friendship and be at a great distance and then also work together and collaborate on something. And I don't think that's something that all friends can do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is maintain friendships at a long distance, but then also working on something together that does take some time, right? Like but it can double as like relational maintenance, right? Like you can maintain your friendship through it, and in a way, it's like increased it. And although I'm hosting this by myself, I would say that I've had my best friend on a couple times. I've had some other friends on. I've had people who are my students who are friends. Like I just have different people on, and I would just say that as I keep doing stuff, it's like I still feel like it allows me to maintain friendships with people I'm friends with because they've listened or they've been a part of an episode and that sort of thing. And it's just really neat to be able to maintain. Yeah. Right. And
exactly.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, like when you sent us those questions, like I'm really surprised at how fulfilling I've found the podcast. And I kind of was thinking about it and realizing that like I love having projects and I feel like this is a very creative project and it's really fun, but like there is no way, knowing myself, that I would have been able to keep up with this if I didn't have someone like Kelly that I was actually collaborating with. It's totally true that like it's given us just another excuse to like talk all the time, which is great. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, and I don't mean this like insulting. It's just the first metaphor I can think of. It's kind of like when you're like, I'm going to start working out. And I mean like an accountability buddy.
Yes. No, that's exactly what that is.
And I didn't want to be like, but
because I've tried to like do my own projects, but sometimes it's like hard because if it's like you're just doing it on your own, like that's not always like the case, but sometimes it's a little bit harder. So I feel like us being accountable for each other, but also like, okay, you'll tackle this, I'll tackle this, we'll do this, and like we'll come together and like we're just on it. We like have a Google Calendar now, so I feel very proud of us.
Like, when you said calendar, I was like, I need to get on that. Like I did it for the interviews, but I don't have it for anything else. And I actually asked, I went on Twitter and was like, students, who's organized? And a bunch of people wrote back and I said, email me. And one of them was like, what do you need? I was like, I need someone to help me organize my podcast.
Yes, please organize my life. Yeah.
Well, that's been really cool is like that I've been able to collaborate. I have like a PR intern as a student. I do a book club series where we analyze friendship books, and that's a student. So we, the 2 episodes that are out, one is she has to read a book from my childhood, which was Sweet Valley High. And then the second one was from Allie Carter, If I Told You I Love You, Then I Have to Kill You, which is like spy girl type stuff.
Fun.
And so like, so we're working on that together. So it just, I mean, one of the really neat things is just that ability to be creative with another person. Yeah. But there is something to be said about being able to do this with someone else. The only thing that I don't really have to worry about is someone else's schedule, and unless I'm interviewing someone, because I'm like, all right, I'm just going to
Yeah.
record because I know how to party on a Friday night.
Exactly.
So, do you have any specific upcoming projects? I know we talked a little bit about episodes or your social media that you would like to promote for the listeners.
Sure.
Yeah. We're all over. So we're on Facebook. I think it's Bad Feminist Film Club. Twitter is Bad Fem Film Club. And then Instagram is Bad Feminist Film Club. We also have a website where we post all of our episodes. And now we're doing something different where we're announcing the movie we're going to cover a week prior.
Yeah.
So then you can watch it before you listen. So it's kind of like a film club, kind of book club, film.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Basically, like anywhere, if you, regardless of what device you have or how you like to listen, we're probably on that platform. Like, we're everywhere. So just Google it. We'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, join the Bad Feminist Film Club.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I feel like we need to chat more. We can just hang out.
Yeah, we're like, hey.
This was a fun interview, probably because I'm all about movies, friendship, and now friendship's rooted in going to see movies. We certainly could have talked longer, but I'm hoping to have Kelly and Sarah back on the show. First, their friendship is clear, easy, fun, and full of laughter and joy. Who wouldn't want more of that in their ear holes? Seriously. Second, I bet there are a lot of you who have a special friendship story associated with a movie, and I think they would appreciate hearing those stories from you, so I hope you'll send me those stories. And third, I think it would be fun to do a crossover episode to analyze a friendship movie with a feminist lens. But one of the things that really struck me about their friendship while doing the interview is that they met in college having several classes together, which led them to then go see movies, which then led them to realize how much they had in common, which was movies. And so this is something Sarah had mentioned. It's that they were able to start with movies and then move into being able to talk about a whole host of topics. And it sounds like the friendship was able to not only widen in range of topics, but deepen in intimacy as they did more things together or talked about more things, that they become closer and closer. So it's something small as seeing each other frequently, like in their class, that can lead to going to the movies together, that, you know what, can lead to this 5-year friendship that includes podcasting together from across the country. It reminds me of my discussion with author of Text Me When You Get Home, Kayleen Schaefer, when we talked about seeing people. When you make friends, you just have to have people around. Maybe go to a coffee shop, maybe go to this thing, go to that thing. Just having the opportunity to meet people is one of the first ways to make friends. And then second, you have to put yourself out there and ask someone to do something like go see a movie, which might take some pressure off some people because you might go see the movie and then you don't really have to chat too much before the movie, and then you can go see the movie, and then you have something to talk about, and that might lead to other conversations. So maybe movie is the great friendship maker. I don't know. What do you think? You let me know. Let me know on social media if you think it is movies that can bring friends together, especially those that might be nervous about making friends, who are introverted, who are shy, or just have some difficulty making friends. Maybe finding someone to go to a movie with might be a way to start a new friendship. The other thing that I thought about when talking to Kelly and Sarah was that they do this from across the country. Sarah is in California and Kelly is in Virginia, and so it again brings a common theme throughout Best Forevers, and that is, how do you maintain your friendships? When you live across the country, how do you stay in touch? Do you watch TV or movies and text? I used to do that with Tierney. We used to watch New Girl and text each other our favorite quotes. Do you call and chat about movies you just saw in the theater? Or maybe like Kelly and Sarah, you go to see movies and then you save all the conversation to record for your podcast. So Kelly and Sarah have done all of this while staying true to the classes they took and the things that they've learned from the professors. Just think about all the movies they see in a critical way through a feminist lens. I definitely recommend checking out Kelly and Sarah on Bad Feminist Film Club podcast. Last week, they released their Ocean's 8 episode, which is one of the first movies I saw this summer, so I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm really excited about doing so. And I also need to get caught up on seeing Solo, so I can then go back and listen to their episode about that movie. So this is a great way to spend your summer, right? Seeing movies and then thinking about them more critically while listening to their podcast. You can find Bad Feminist Film Club on Instagram, Twitter, and all your favorite podcast listening venues. And if you like what you hear, give them a subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks for listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'm so grateful for all the friends I've made since starting the podcast, all the support received, and for every single listen. Be sure to check out Best Forevers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Best Forevers Pod. And again, if you like Bad Feminist Film Club and you like Best Forevers, you can also give me a subscribe, rate, and review. It'll be much appreciated. And please always, 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 always share your friendship stories by checking out bestforeverspod.com/surveys or by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. There's lots of friendship topics to respond to, including age and friendship, which is related to last week's episode with Bia called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And I posted a new survey for you to share all of your favorite stories related to friendship and movies. That way I can get Sarah and Kelly back on the show. I love to hear about friendship, and I want to share all of your stories with those listening to the podcast as well. And if you're excited about friendship, like I am, you may consider supporting the movement to love on our friends more and the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. There's a lot of cool perks and goals. You want to check it out. And I would love to call you all my friends with benefits. Upcoming on the podcast is the second part to the age episode where I interview my friend Ashley, who is 10 years younger than me. An episode about sexual communication among friends, which is related to some of the research I've been doing. Our fur babies, i.e. our pets, as best friends. And an interview with the amazing ladies from the equally amazing podcast, The Vocal Fries. If you got a topic you like to hear, or you and a friend would like to be interviewed on the podcast, please email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com or find me on social media. This week's promos include one of my longtime favorite podcasts, The Cutaways, with friends Ashley and Justine, who analyze all of the romantic comedy movies out there. Have a listen and be sure to join them in their slumber party when they release on Wednesdays. Also check out a fun new podcast called Lady Shit with Lily and Britt, where they focus on all topics that relate to women today. Have a listen to their promos and give all of these ladies a shot. And if you're looking for female-run podcasts, you can search Twitter using the hashtag LadyPodSquad, which both of these podcasts are members of. So friends, it's movie time. Go enjoy a movie with a friend, because without our friends, who would we be? And honestly, who would keep us from embarrassing ourselves when we meet Leonardo DiCaprio?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Justine. And we make up the Cutaways podcast.
We're watching the good, the bad, and the essentials of the romantic comedy genre.
So far, we've fallen in love with Cary Grant, met up with our terrible friend, pal Joey, and had the desire to run our fingers through Patrick Dempsey's hair.
Join our slumber party for your ears every other week, brought to you in stereo from our blanket fort in Hollywood, California.
You can find and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcatcher. Our digital blanket fort can be found at thecutaways.com.
If you are the social butterfly types, you can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as @Cutaways Podcast.
Bye!
Hey everyone, I'm Lily. And I'm Britt. And we're the co-hosts of Lady Shit with Lily and Britt. We talk about anything and everything related to being women today. Like how much it sucks when people ask when you're going to have a baby.
Or how much we love Michelle Obama. And is there a right way to do self-care?
As doctoral students, we're occasionally smart, putting in a little bit of research into every topic we cover. But mostly, we're just ridiculous.
As the guy who sold us our podcast equipment said, you're the kind of smart where you really have to dig. If we sound like your cup of tea or glass of wine, new episodes of Lady Shit come out every second Tuesday.
You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podbean. Oh, and when you're searching, make sure lady shit is one word.
Yeah, and you have to substitute the I for an exclamation point. Why did we make this so hard to find? I guess the guy at the store was right.